All right guys, welcome back to Maverick Overland Adventures. In today's video, we're going to be doing a review of the Yakima Skyrise HD Rooftop Tent. So I've owned this tent for about 2 years now, and in the time that I've had it, we've put quite a few trips in on it in different weather conditions and really tested it out. And so far I've been pretty happy with it. This is the first rooftop tent that I ever purchased. So when I bought this thing, I didn't really know a lot about these. So over the time that we've had it, I found a lot of things about it that I really like. There's also a few things I found though that I don't necessarily like too much, or things that I would change if I were to buy another one of these again in the future. So we're gonna cover all that stuff in today's episode. This is an unsponsored review, meaning that I'm free to tell you guys whatever I want, and I'm going to try to be as detailed as possible. When it comes to purchasing one of these tents, that's actually the first point that I want to talk about, and that these are quite expensive. When you look at the market of rooftop tents, there's a lot of different options out there. There's a really wide spectrum from lower prices in the $1,000 range, maybe even a little bit less, depending on the quality and where you find it, all the way up to $3,000, $4,000. This sits a little bit on the higher end of that. I think the MSRP on the medium size HD Skyrise is right around $2,500, $2,600. So this is not a cheap product, but I will say that for the money that you are spending, you do get a very good quality product. And we're going to dive into that a lot more as we get further into this video. But quality wise, I think that this is an excellent product. And when you spend your money on it, you're getting something that is great quality in return. This is also one of the larger tents on the market, which is what really drew my eye to it in the first place. I wanted something with a lot of room. And this particular tent definitely fit what I needed. So you're not spending a lot of money for nothing. You're definitely getting a lot out of what you're spending your money on, but you are spending a lot of money for this tent. It is quite expensive. Now, before we move on here, it is worth noting that this is the medium-sized Skyrise tent. So when you hear medium, you would think that there's a small, a medium, and a large, but that's actually not the case. In the Skyrise lineup, you have a small and you have a medium, with the medium being the larger size of the two. Now, taking a look at the tent here, I decided to go ahead and start us off in the closed position because there's a few things on the outside that I think are definitely worth noting. The first thing being this weatherproof cover. One of the biggest concerns for me with these rooftop tents, especially these soft-sided ones, is water, moisture getting inside of this thing and causing mold, mildew, all kind of nasty stuff, especially down here in the south where it's extremely humid. That's one of the quickest ways to destroy a rooftop tent, or any tent for that matter. So it is extremely important to have a good weatherproof cover over these soft-sided tents. And this one, in my opinion, is fantastic. This is an extremely thick PVC, almost like rubberized waterproof cover, and it has held up fantastic. In the 2 years that I've owned this tent, it's been outside on the truck a majority of that time, even in the hot Florida sun. There's no weather cracking or anything like that. It's held up perfectly. It hasn't even really faded. This is pretty much the original color of it from when it came from the factory. Something that has definitely impressed me are these seams. I always worry about seams like this, but they did a really good job at sealing those up and reinforcing them. And this is really thick material too. I have drove this truck down some pretty skinny little trails here in Florida with like pine branches and all kind of stuff scratching across the top of this tent, and I haven't had any issues with punctures or anything like that. I'll climb up on top here and show you guys. Still in perfect condition, no punctures, no holes, just really, really good quality material that they used on that cover. Then around the bottom of this cover, they have this very, very thick strip of Velcro, and it's so strong that it's almost hard to do one-handed while I'm holding the camera here, but you guys can see that Velcro in there, and that Velcro goes pretty much from the bottom of this top part of the cover all the way up to where that seam is. So that's a nice thick strip of Velcro that goes all the way around this thing, so you can completely seal this cover all the way around. So when you're driving down the highway, there's no like rainwater coming up underneath the front or anything like that. You've got these tabs that you can pull open. Again, nice big thick strip of Velcro to hold those shut. You've got these zippers. These are really thick, durable zippers, like very, very strong zippers there. Been pretty impressed with those. And then once you get that down to the bottom, you've got this Velcro tab that you can put over that to hold that zipper in place. That way it can't go back up. So I think that that is just like an awesome little added feature there. You've got these buckles on these nice durable straps. I always worry about things like this, not necessarily on like rooftop tents, but just in general, like products like this that have these straps. A lot of times these will be real cheesy how they're stitched in. They'll use like one layer, and after a few uses, this will like rip out or something, especially if you're pulling on this thing, trying to cinch it down nice and tight. But you can see there how carefully they stitched this and they reinforced it. This is a nice super thick tab, probably like 2 millimeters thick of that PVC material there, and then they've got that reinforced stitching on there to help hold that strap in place. Really, really good quality work. I haven't had any issues with these, and I mean, I cinch these down really tight sometimes. It'd be funny if it broke right there. Okay, now the one thing that I am going to mention, actually I got a couple things. Let's walk around this side. So if you take a look, the bottom part of this strap right here actually comes down and it is screwed into place, and they've got like some kind of little bracket right there pinching it into place, and they have some screws through there, which is awesome. I like having the screws through that strap because it's nice and reinforced. But if you look closely at those, you'll see on mine those screws are actually bent. One thing I want to mention with that is I did that wasn't like that from the factory, but one thing that I found is if you are sliding this tent around, especially if you're trying to like position it on top of your rack for the first time and you don't really know where it's going to go yet, so you're sliding it around up there, one thing you got to watch out for is catching those screws on the top of your rack, and that's how mine are bent. I didn't really realize that they were there, so I was sliding that tent around, the screws got caught on the rack and unfortunately bent out a little bit. So it hasn't been a problem, but that is definitely something that you want to watch out for, because it probably would be pretty easy to strip those out of the bottom platform of the tent there. So just be cautious of that. I definitely think those could have maybe been hidden or like even recessed. If they would have recessed the heads of those screws so they were like nice and flush with the bottom, I think that probably would have been a better choice. The other thing that I've noticed here that I don't necessarily love is if you look right here on mine, I actually left it. I noticed it the other day, but I left it so I could show you guys in this review. So it's going to be kind of hard to see, but if you guys take a look here on the base of the tent all the way around, there's this little notch, and what that notch is used for is actually the bottom part of the weatherproof cover that has this little like tab on the back side of it, and that slides in there all the way around. But what can happen is that can actually slide just a little bit too far and leave about an 1 or 2 inch gap right there that's going to allow moisture to get up in there, especially if it's up here on the front while you're driving down the highway. You can see I've got just a little bit of a gap right there, and that tan fabric is actually the outer shell of the tent. So while I'm driving down the highway, if it's pouring rain, that's going to allow moisture to shoot up in there. So I think that possibly could have been designed a little bit better so that didn't happen. It's not hard to fix. You just have to take the cover off, and then you can actually grab this bottom part and slide it backwards in that channel. That way when you close this up, you push that Velcro down and it Velcros it and seals it all nice and tight. But that's just something to watch out for that I've noticed that could allow moisture to get up in the tent. I think they could have done a little bit better with that, but for the most part, not a huge deal if you keep an eye on it and make sure that gap doesn't open up. Now, before we get this tent opened up, there is one last thing on the outside that I want to talk about, and that is going to be the mounting system. You guys can see these clamps up underneath here, and this is something that Yakima has done on their Skyrise series tents that I personally think is genius. Basically, all you have to do is come in here. You can see that there's this little handle, and you just twist that, and that's going to open that clamp up, and then you can just lift the tent right off. It literally takes a matter of seconds, no bolts required. And I think that that is something worth mentioning that is very positive about this tent. And something else about these clamps, if you guys take a look right there, is that is a lock. So you actually have not only the ability to quickly remove or reinstall this tent, but you can also lock it in its position. So if you're out somewhere in public, someone can't come and steal it off of your rack. So that pretty much covers everything I wanted to touch on before we get this tent opened up. So the next step is to get this tent opened up so I can show you guys the real important stuff. Now, in terms of a step-by-step while we deploy the tent, I'm not really going to get too in-depth here in this video. If you guys do want to see a full in-depth walkthrough on setting this tent up, I do have that video over on my channel. I will link it down below in the description for you. However, I do think that it is important that we talk about how easy it is to set this tent up, because in overlanding, that's really the goal of the whole thing. Everything needs to be simple so you can just pull up to a spot, deploy camp, and you're ready to go within 5 to 10 minutes. So what we're going to do is I'm going to set a timer on my phone right here, and we're going to see how long it takes to get this tent fully set up. All right, I've got our stopwatch right here, and go. The first thing we're doing is we're just going to pop off all of these tabs all the way around, undoing the 2 zippers on these outer corners. I'm going to pull the Velcro off all the way around the tent. I do have to climb up on the bed rail here, or at least up the side of the rack, just to get a good solid point where I can rip that Velcro off. So that is kind of inconvenient. While I'm up here, I usually do push the ladder out just enough to where I can get it from that far side. If we're gonna do it, we're gonna roll, we're gonna go the whole way. We're gonna roll the weatherproof cover up too. Got 2 little tabs on the sides we gotta open. Make sure she's solid, we're good to go. We'll walk around and pull our skirt down. And finally, we've got 8 of these rainfly stakes. In my case, I only have 7 that actually fit because of my cargo box on the front blocks one of them, but we don't really need it, so it's not that big a deal. All right, guys, and that is time. So, not the quickest tent in the world to get set up, but it definitely isn't the slowest either. You guys can see that it's not incredibly difficult to set up. It's actually quite easy. It's just a little bit more time consuming than some of the tents on the market, like the wedge style ones that just pop open. That's about as easy as it gets. So you're never gonna be as fast as those. But in terms of ease to set this thing up, it's really not that bad. As you guys just saw, one person can easily set this up. Something I really like that they did is they designed it so to open the bottom of the tent, you can use the ladder as your leverage to open up the base of the tent, and that way it's much easier for you to do so. So one person can easily set this thing up by themselves without a problem at all. Yeah, there it is, guys. I'll give you a little walk around of this tent. This is the ladder side here. We've got the door up there. Both sides of this do have a door, so you'll see the other one on the other side here in a sec. And you can see that both sides of the tent have windows that do open. Here's our other door right here. This, I will tell you, this is actually very useful. When my son was a little bit younger, we took him camping a few times, and what we actually did is rocked him to sleep outside of camp, and we were actually able to sneak him up this side of the truck into this second door over here, and that way when we climbed in to go to bed a little bit later in the evening, we could come up the ladder side and not have to climb over him and disturb him. So it's little things like that that you don't really think of until you're in the situation, that you're like, it is quite nice having a door on each end of the tent, especially since this is such a large tent. My wife and I are both relatively short, so we have probably like, you know, well over a foot between the bottom of our feet and the far end of the tent. So plenty of room in there for things like that. If you have like a kid camping with you, or if you just have like a bunch of gear that you want to keep up there just to keep dry throughout the night or something like that, plenty of room inside this tent. Getting back into what were we talking about? Opening the tent up. So deploying your rooftop tent, it's really not that bad. You've got 3 basic steps: remove your weatherproof cover, flip the tent open, and then put the stakes in for your rain fly if you choose to have the rain fly on. That's another nice thing too. This is a fairly versatile tent in that you don't have to have the rain fly on. If you're not expecting any rain and you want to sleep with the top windows wide open with the breeze flowing through it, you totally can. All you have to do is unbuckle all 4 corners right here, obviously remove your stakes, and that rain fly will come off the top of the tent. And since we're on the rain fly, I've been pretty impressed with this thing. It seems quite durable. Everything's all double stitched. You can see where the buckle and the strap attached to it, they actually put more of that PVC backing on there and then double stitch the whole thing, so there's really no chance of that ripping off there. I haven't had any issues with like holes or rips or anything happening in that. It's still completely waterproof, and it does a really good job at wicking that rainwater off of the tent. I think that these are a pretty good design. I've been happy with them so far, and I like how simple they are, man. It's real nice. You got this little slit right here in the skirt of the tent that opens up, and they literally just have a hole drilled sideways into the base of the tent. So I found the easiest way to do this is you put the hook into the grommet up there on the rain fly, and then you can just bend this post or this stake and just stick it right into the hole, and it's in there nice and firm. I mean, there is no chance of that thing slipping out. You have to pull on it pretty hard to get it out of there. The only thing I noticed about these that I don't really know how you would fix it. I think it just is what it is. But if you have a taller vehicle, or if you don't really have access up over your roof, it's kind of tricky to get these side stakes in. So I found the easiest way to do it is actually to climb up into the tent and open up that window, and then you can hang out and do it from inside the tent. The only one that I ever had to do that with was the one that's supposed to go right there. Now my cargo box blocks it, so I don't even put it in there anyway. But if you have like a taller vehicle, or you don't really have great access to your roof, you might have to climb up to get those ones over the cab. The tent itself, very, very durable, and I think that that is where this particular model really shines, is its durability. The canvas that they use on this thing is very, very thick. They've got this nice skirt that goes all the way around the tent here. Really good at keeping the moisture and everything out of the tent while it's opened up. They've got these little flaps here too that Velcro down. And if you open those up, you can see inside, that's where the hinge for the actual tent itself is. So that's where the two halves of the tent will fold over. And you know what, on that note too, so I've used this tent mostly in nice conditions, but I will say I didn't end up filming it because the trip didn't work out, and it just, honestly, it kind of sucked. We ended up coming back early, but my buddy and I went on a fishing trip down to Melbourne, Florida, and we were camping and just got absolutely decimated by thunderstorms. Like, it was terrible. It was like 30, 40 mile an hour gusting wind and just pouring rain, just torrential downpour. And I was in this tent all night long, wide awake because I couldn't sleep because I was getting whipped around so bad, and there was thunder, and it was just a terrible experience. But the tent did awesome. Durability wise, with the wind, I didn't have any issues. The rain fly stayed buttoned down all night, didn't have any tearing or any ripping or anything like that. One thing I really like about this is that you can cinch that rain fly down nice and tight on all four corners. That way it barely moves in the wind. I think that that's a really good design. And with the water intrusion from the torrential downpour that we had, I barely had any. The most that I had was in the morning after it had stormed literally all night, just barely, like the edge of my sheet on the side of the mattress was like a little bit damp. It wasn't wet. There wasn't like pooling water in the tent or anything like that, but it was just ever so slightly damp. And I think what that probably came from was this little flap right here. So if you do have like torrential downpour that's like pelting you sideways, you might have a little bit of water intrusion right here. You can see that's actually the mattress right there. I can touch it with my finger. So I'm gonna guess that's probably where it came from, but you do have, there's an inside flap that you kind of have to do from the inside there that pulls down over this. And then you've got this outer one that Velcros down and kind of comes down with the skirt there. So maybe it just wasn't Velcroed in place properly. I didn't really check it, to be honest with you guys. But for the most part, other than that, the tent stayed completely waterproof. I was nice and dry in there all night long. And it's marketed as an all seasons, all weather tent. I haven't tried it in winter yet, but in terms of like all weather, I would definitely say that this is something that I would now feel comfortable going out to camp in, you know, thunderstorms or anything like that. And I think we're about ready to go ahead and crawl up into the tent and show you guys that. On the way up, I do want to talk about the ladder, and we'll talk about the doors though. So starting with the ladder, I am pretty happy with this ladder. Very durable, very strong. I'm about 200 pounds, so you know, not that big, but not the lightest guy either. And I mean, it's very, very sturdy. There's like no bounce in this ladder at all. The only complaint that I have about this, it's not really a complaint, but an observation, I guess, and that is these little tabs right here. So what these do is if you squeeze these on either side, it's going to allow you to close this ladder up. And I want you guys to look right here. You'll see that there is a little tiny tab that sticks up off the top of that step, and what that tab does is it engages the tab on the next step as you close this up. So I'm going to set the camera down here so I can show this to you guys. So the issue that I have with this that you're going to want to be aware of is if you are needing to shorten this ladder up, so you can see that I've shortened it by about 2 steps there for the height that my tent is at, you're always going to want to shorten it from the top, because if you squeeze these tabs, shorten it up, now those tabs on the top of the step are going to engage the tabs on the next step, and it's not going to allow you to lock these steps in place. If you start by doing it from the bottom or somewhere in the middle, what's going to happen is those tabs are going to engage that next step, and it's just going to keep closing and closing. So you'll have it closed up and it looks like it's locked in place, and you'll go to step on it and it's going to drop down. So what you actually want to do is you're going to want to close it from starting at the top step, close it another one until it's where you want, and now all of these steps on the ladder are going to be locked in place. It's not a big deal, but it is a mistake that I made the first time when I was deploying this ladder, and as I started climbing up, it started like bouncing and trying to collapse underneath me, so kind of sketchy. And the next thing I want to show you guys is going to be this door. This is an extremely durable door. The other thing I like that they did is you'll notice here that how thick this is. That's because there's actually a weighted bar inside there. So this actually holds itself down nice and flat against the tent and doesn't get all bunched up here, which I think is just a super cool feature. They didn't have to add, but they did, and it's something that makes it so much more convenient. These zippers are extremely durable. They're very easy to do one-handed. Each zipper, there's one on each side. It ends about right here, so when you zip this all the way down, you still have a nice little air gap right there, which I think is nice. This skirt kind of hangs down, so your screen is covered, so moisture's not getting in there. Of course, we do have the rain fly over us too. but it's going to prevent moisture from getting in there while still allowing air to kind of pass through, so you're not just like dying of heat inside this tent. So all you have to do for this is you can literally just roll it from the bottom, and when you get up here to the top, you're going to see that there are two little tabs right there, one of them for this door and one of them if you want to roll the screen open too. And that's what they're going to look like once you have them locked in position there. It holds that door nice and high up above your head, so you do have a lot of room right here to crawl in and out of this tent. Very convenient. And then you do have zippers that allow you to zip the screen open. There are two zippers on each of these doors, which I think was a nice touch. This screen is nice and thick. I've been happy with this so far. Same thing with the screen here. You can just roll that right up, get it out of your way, and then there's a little ring with a tab that locks it into place on each side. I will say I like this system to lock the door and windows and stuff up out of the way. These little tabs are nice. It's not the most convenient thing. You can't do it one-handed, which would be kind of cool, and it's also a little bit time consuming, especially when you have the main door and the screen door. If you want to do all the windows and both doors, maybe when you're getting home and you need to open this thing back up so you can dry it out, for example, you're going to want to open all this stuff up, and it's just a little bit time consuming to have to do it all every single time. So it would be nice if someone could figure out a way, maybe like magnets or something, to where you could just roll the dang thing up and just magnet it up to the top or something. I think that would be a really cool feature that someone would come up with. But overall, I'm happy with it. I think it's a decent design, and it does the job that it's intended to do. So this is what the inside of the tent looks like here. Now, before we get into the interior of the tent, something that I think is worth noting is you guys will notice that I'm sitting on the end of the tent that is hanging out over off the edge of the truck with no support underneath it other than the ladder. So I forget what the number is. I'm gonna have to look it up, but Yakima has actually designed this tent to be able to support up to a certain amount of weight, and it's a lot. It's like, if I remember right, it's like 400 or 500 pounds or something like that on this open part of the tent that is not over the vehicle without the support of the ladder. At least that's how they market it. All right, I'm gonna climb back up into the tent. This is something that this is probably just me being irrational, but something that bothers me about this ladder, I'm not gonna lie, it is extremely uncomfortable, like almost painful to step on it barefoot. And I think a lot of it has to do with how kind of squared off these corners are. I feel like if they were like a little bit more rounded or something, it would be more comfortable, but like it literally hurts climbing up this ladder barefoot. So I don't do it. And to me, that's kind of inconvenient. I wish it was more comfortable to climb up the ladder barefoot, because I like the idea of leaving my shoes down here at the bottom so I don't have to have my dirty shoes up there in the tent. Now, there is something that they do sell. They make an accessory for this that I think it actually mounts into this accessory track on the bottom of the tent, and it's like a little bag that hangs down out here for you to put your shoes in, and it is unreasonably expensive. So I have not purchased one. I'm probably going to use, like, you could put like a Walmart bag, like a shopping bag hanging off this stake right here or something, and it would work exactly the same. So that's probably what I'm going to do. But that's like my one gripe about this, is I wish it was more comfortable to climb up barefoot so I could just leave my dang shoes down here at the bottom of the ladder. Normally what I do too, so you will notice that on all four corners here they have these pouches, which are real nice for like cell phones or whatever you got to bring with you. I usually designate these ones down here at the foot of the bed to be where our shoes go, and that works out kind of nice. I'm gonna set you guys up right there real quick, and we're gonna get these windows opened up. These are essentially the same concept as the doors. Each of these is gonna have two zippers, which is pretty convenient. And these do have tabs to where you can like lock them into place. I don't ever do that. I just slide them down there just like that, and it works just fine. These screens on all sides, all windows, these screens do also have a zipper, so you can unzip the screen and have this whole thing open if you want to. Here in Florida, pretty buggy, so we leave the screens closed. Now, one thing I will note about these windows is it's slightly inconvenient when you are closing this tent back up. You have to make sure these windows are zipped shut, otherwise they're going to get bunched up in the hinge right here, and the tent doesn't want to close like it's supposed to. Now, something else I like, we do have the rain fly on, so it's going to be pointless to open these up right now, but this Skyrise tent does have these same panels for the windows up here in the roof on both sides, so you can actually unzip those panels, and you can even unzip the screen. So if you don't have the rain fly on, you've got nice skylights, and you can lay in here and look up at the stars if you want to at night, which I think is really, really cool. All of those do have tabs on there, so if you are laying in here at night looking up the sky with those screens open. They're not just dangling down in your face. You can lock them up into those tabs right there out of your way. Durability wise, all the seams on the tent are all double stitched and reinforced. I mean, you can see the zipper right here, like how much stitching that has on it. Very, very strong. But aside from being strong, they went through and they actually taped all of these seams, sealed them up to make sure they're waterproof, and they did a really good job. There is very little water intrusion in this tent. With the tape on those seams or whatever it is they used, I will say some of it, like these ones right here, are starting to peel a little bit. The ones over the doors where these tabs are have peeled off just slightly. But for the most part, that stuff is all on there, nice and tight, barely coming off. I mean, only coming off in a few spots. From inside too, we've got a really good view of the frame and how it's constructed, and durability wise, I think they did a really good job with it. If we come over here, you guys have a really good view of the hinge. This is what actually swings the tent open there in the middle, and you can see how thick that metal plating is. I think that's actually galvanized steel, so very strong and durable there, very large bolts. And you've got 3 parts of the frame here that kind of fan off from that hinge, so one supports each end of the tent up over the doors, and then you've got this middle one that supports the middle like kind of peak of the tent here. Those are nice thick, probably like 3/4 inch aluminum tubing, so they're not like cheesy little fiberglass tent poles or whatever. Like, they are actually solid quality metal poles. Like I had said a little while ago there, I have camped in this tent in howling gusty wind during a thunderstorm. Not intentionally, but I did it. And you know, it was whipping around pretty good, but it stayed solid all night long, had absolutely nothing break on it, no issues. So the frame of this tent is definitely designed to be very strong, and I'm quite happy with it. I was actually very impressed that it weathered through the night without getting torn up at all. So I'm gonna go ahead and climb out here, because the last thing that we're gonna talk about on the inside of this tent is the big negative that I have been holding out on, and that is this mattress right here. Now, in terms of durability and how well it's built, this thing is awesome. Everything is all double stitched. In the 2 years I've owned it, no rips, tears, anything like that. And the way that it's designed, you can see they even like took the special attention to or design it with like a notch where the hinge is. That way when the hinge closes, when you're closing the tent, it's not tearing the fabric or anything like that. So really well designed, really good quality. The reason that I don't necessarily love it, it's gonna all come down to opinion. Everybody's different, but for me, this thing is just not comfortable to sleep on. My wife and I both like a little bit softer of a mattress. I have back problems as it is, and after sleeping on this thing for a night, if I can even sleep in the first place, when I wake up, my back feels terrible. If you like a pretty firm mattress, this is probably going to work pretty well for you. I wish I was that way, but I'm just not. I have to have a comfortable mattress to sleep on, and unfortunately this just isn't it. And for me, this is the biggest drawback of this tent, I think. What we've done to kind of help the issue is we have some self-inflating camp pads that will actually roll out on top of this thing, and that helps quite a bit. It's a little bit more comfortable, but we still haven't been the most comfortable, and it sucks because it's an awesome tent and we're going out doing something we love, going out camping and overlanding and stuff, and it's hard to enjoy the actual sleeping portion because we're so uncomfortable. So what we have recently done is I actually ordered a air mattress that is fitted to this size of rooftop tent, and it's about 5 inches thick. So unfortunately we are going to lose about that much height on top of this mattress in order to get this air mattress in here. But I think that that's what we have to do in order to be able to comfortably sleep in here, which sucks because with the amount of money that you spend on this particular tent, you would think that it would have you know, the most comfortable mattress on the market. And unfortunately, I don't think that it does. Again, that of course is all going to be opinion. If you're somebody that likes a good firm mattress, this is probably going to be awesome for you. But if you're somebody that does not like a firm mattress, if you need a softer mattress to be able to comfortably sleep, I think that you're going to have trouble sleeping on this one. It's really not that thick either. It's only probably about 3 inches thick. I'll have to check the dimensions on that because I don't remember at this point, but it's 2.5 or 3 inches, and there's just not, it just doesn't have a lot of padding. It's just really not that comfortable. So other than the mattress issue though, I have very few complaints about this tent, and the ones that I have listed off to you guys throughout this video are pretty minor in the grand scheme of things. The major things for me that I really was looking for with this rooftop tent was durability Can it keep the weather out? And size. Size-wise, you guys can see how big it is, and you saw how big it is on the inside. It is a very, very large floor plan here. I mean, very large rooftop tent that has no problem accommodating me, my wife, and our son when he comes along with us. And then the other side of it, of course, being durability. I think that this is an extremely durable tent. Like I said, you are spending a lot of money for it, but the durability that you're getting in return, like the quality of this tent, I think is fantastic. In the time that I've owned it, we've used it quite a bit, and I mean, it looks still pretty much brand new. There's no tears or rips or anything in any of the fabric or the canvas. The rainfly has no holes in it, still in perfect condition, and it keeps the weather out. That was the other big one for me. Like I had said there, we tested it through a pretty major thunderstorm, and it did honestly a lot better than I expected, and it really boosted my confidence in taking this thing out again in pretty crappy weather. I think it would do just fine. And just to kind of reiterate here too, something else I really like about this tent are those quick release mount brackets that Yakima has come up with. I think that those are fantastic, especially if you're somebody that is constantly taking this tent off and putting it back on. They make it so much easier than having to mess with any bolts and get your hands up in there to tighten stuff. Like, it's just a mess having to do all that. So having the option to have these quick release clamps, it makes it so much easier, guys. All right, big question. Would I purchase this rooftop tent again? So this is gonna be kind of a multi-part answer. Yes, I would absolutely purchase this tent again in terms of its durability, its weatherproof abilities, and its size. However, on the flip side of that, the main reasons that I would possibly consider going with a different option in the future whenever I do have to do that, the big one for me is the fuel economy. If you don't care about fuel economy, good for you. I definitely recommend this tent. This thing is awesome. For me, I lose about 7 to 8 miles per gallon just by having this thing mounted up there where I do. So in addition to the camping stuff, this is my daily driver, and we do take it on a lot of longer drives. So having that much of a loss in miles per gallon is kind of a pain in the ass. I'm paying a lot more in fuel by having this mounted up there. So it would be nice to have one of the hard shell style rooftop tents that's a lot more aerodynamic and saves some miles per gallon for you. So that's definitely something that is running through my head when I'm thinking about potentially having to upgrade this one day. The other one is just ease of setup. As you guys saw, it took about 4 minutes to get this thing set up without rushing too much. It's really not that bad, but when you look at some of those like wedge style hard-sided or hard shell rooftop tents where you can literally just pop it open and you're done, 4 minutes is a long time. So those are just things that you really have to think about when you are choosing which rooftop tent you want to go with. For me, I'm not going to have to upgrade this thing for a long time. I'm sure that this is going to last for many more years to come. But when I do finally get to that point, those are things that I am going to be considering. And if you guys are watching this video because you're considering which rooftop tent to buy, and you know, this is one of your options, that's definitely something that I would think about. If you're someone that cares about fuel mileage, this style tent, not even just this tent, but this style tent with this very blocky design when it's in its closed position is going to really play a factor in your fuel economy. And in terms of setup, this style tent also is not the most convenient. It's not bad by any means, but it's not the most convenient. Now, I will say though, on the flip side of taking a little bit longer to set up and having a couple extra steps, you do get a much larger tent. This is a very, very large tent with a lot of room inside. So if that's important to you, like it is me, it might be worth going through those extra couple steps to get this thing set up, so then you have all that room. Whereas like a wedge style pop-up, you're not going to have as much room as this thing does, but you do get to open it up a lot faster than you do with this one. So you just have to weigh those pros and cons. But yeah, man, in terms of this tent specifically, I really like it. Yeah, I would probably buy it again, and I definitely recommend it as an option if you are interested in picking up a quality rooftop tent. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed the review. If you did, let me know down below in the comments. If you have any questions, you can let me know down there as well. I try to answer as many as I can. Also, if you're not subscribed to my channel, make sure you go over there and do that. That way you don't miss out on future content. If you are interested in checking out the Overland build, I do have all the videos step by step for the process over there on my channel, as well as some overlanding videos. We just did a recent one down in the Apalachicola National Forest, and we went down and visited St. Mark's National Wildlife Refuge. So if you guys are interested in all that stuff and anything Maverick related, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys so much, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.